So no, we see her eyes. She looks like a raccoon.
Oh,
Well, much better, much better.
All right, guys, we got 7 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the September 22nd council committee meetings. First thing on the early list is committee of the whole. We're going to talk about board and commission update. I guess Amy and Joe. Bridget.
Yeah, yep. After last August committee meeting, can everyone hear me?
yeah.
Okay. Council had asked for us to compile our recommendations after the last discussion from both staff and from council members regarding the changes to boards and commissions. So we compiled those, and that's the first item in your packet. So I'll just briefly go through them. The first section is in regards to filling of vacancies. So it just goes over currently what the standing rules are and what our staff suggestions are for updating the standing rules. Instead of relying solely on the Tree City Bulletin, we're suggesting updating the process to have vacancies filled using all available methods of communication, and those are listed right there, 1 through 6. The next section is our term expiration date. We talked briefly about all of the terms ending in December and what that would mean for the interview process. So when Bridget, Hope, and I discussed this, we thought there really is no reason to change the expiration date of the terms ending in December, but just to change our internal process. So what we'll suggest that we do is, because we don't want to sit through, or have to go through a bunch of interviews in December, which would be a very long process, we thought we would start advertising those position vacancies early so that we can start interviewing candidates in September, October, and November. So we can kind of spread those out before their terms expire in December, and then the new terms for the people we interview would start in January. The next section is membership and term limits. We discussed this the last time, only having our board members be on one board at a time. So that's the membership on boards and commissions. So members appointed by council shall hold no other municipal office or employment. That's what that section is about. And then we have a section on removal of members of boards and commissions. So you can read there if they have, they can be removed for neglect of duty, incapacity, incompetency, or malfeasance. And then we touched on term limits. So unless otherwise provided for in the charter, so those that are governed by the charter, no member of any board or commission shall serve more than 3 consecutive terms or 12 years, whichever comes first. So that's the suggestion that we have regarding term limits. And then the last bullet in here is the specific board changes. So we have 4 specific board changes that are recommended. For the Board of Building Appeals, Bridget caught this. There are 6 members, which it doesn't really work. So we're suggesting that you change this to 5 members. 1 member would be a general contractor, 1 would be an architect. 2 of the members, this is another change of the Board of Building Appeals, 2 of the members would be in the field of plumbing, electric, heating, and air conditioning. And then we would get rid of the 3 alternates. So that would be 5 members. Items 2 and 3, the Parking Action Commission and the Cable Television Commission, we're recommending repeal those. Not really needed anymore. And then the Special Assessment Equalization Board, you can see if you turn your page, paragraph 4 lists the changes where council shall appoint an assessment equalization board as needed. So we wouldn't fill those on a regular basis or advertise those to be filled. So those are that's our report, and those are our suggestions for council. And Bridget and Hope, if you'd like to add anything.
I think you summarized that well.
Do we have any questions from council?
Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah, your voice was breaking up a little bit with me, but I did read over it. Do you think 3 terms on these boards is too much, or maybe 2 would be better, or anybody input on that?
Oh, Bridget, you're muted.
Anybody want to answer John's question?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We have several boards through the community development department, and sometimes just 2 terms, the turnover is too quick, especially if they're completing a term. So with this, and actually some of our terms are 5 years in length. So we felt that 3 consecutive terms was probably a good length of time, considering some boards are harder to fill than others. We did add, which I think helps facilitate a little turnover, is that once your term limit is met, you can't reapply to that board for the length of a full term. So in other words, you can't come off and then as soon as somebody else is up, apply within a year or to finish out someone else's terms. You have to be off for that 3-year period, which will allow some turnover, but we don't always have volunteers for all the boards. So I also didn't want to be in a position where we had vacancies, because some of the boards under community development are quasi judicial, such as Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Architectural Review Board. So we do need those fully staffed.
Okay. Roger, you had a question?
Yeah, the tax assessment board, I can't remember when the project is approved. If we don't have a standing committee, which I think is fine, how much of a timeline will we need to do those assessments before the project starts? So I guess what I'm saying is, would we have enough time to advertise appropriately and go out and recruit some people to sit on that? I just don't know what the time frame is. Does anyone have any idea?
Oh,
In Cauca Falls, we did not have a problem recruiting people for the special assessment boards,
Okay,
because they knew that they were going to be serving just for that project. And I don't see us having a problem here, Roger, but
Okay.
that is certainly something to keep in mind.
well, the only reason I asked is I've served on it before, way back in the 90s, and I remember getting a frantic call because they needed someone to do it. You know, I was just, and I said, okay, like a fool. No, that's interesting. But I guess what I'm driving at is, as long as you feel that the timeline is adequate to get people, then I'm okay with just having that as an as needed board.
And I actually took that language from the revised code.
Okay,
Because in the revised code, it's actually as needed. And I think the reason they do that is because you're supposed to have uninterested people. So if we have a board that sits and sits and sits, you might have a couple board members that are actually neighbors of
Right.
a project. So I think this is good language.
thank you.
All right, Mike, you lit up there for a while. Do you have something to say?
No, I didn't.
All right.
Like,
Somebody else?
Yeah,
Tracy.
Jerry,
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
it. Tracy?
I was curious about the Parking Action Commission. I take it that when the administration, everybody else does it, they're going to talk to the downtown businesses before a decision is made and get input from them.
Bridget's on that board. I'm not.
Yes, we would definitely do that. And actually, most of the items that are moved before the Parking Action Committee, especially now that we're past redevelopment and have the parking plan pretty much established and in place downtown, it's usually brought to us by a member of the downtown business as a request. So then that would be discussed now with the Traffic Engineering and Safety Commission, which is comprised of city staff that work in and around that area. And then any change that would require legislative action would come before you.
Okay, thank you.
John?
It's interesting. I just had somebody say they missed applying for the last time and they wanted to apply this time for it. I says, I think they're going to eliminate that board.
All right. Is anybody else?
Yeah, I have something.
Go ahead,
It's Heidi. Um,
Heidi.
yeah, so I don't have any material in front of me, so maybe there's a description of that parking action committee. But do we have any downtown residents there? Are they allowed to sit on the board? That would be a question for, I guess, Bridget.
There,
You know,
there
it's
wa-
just-
yeah, there was there was a resident from the downtown. That position actually had been vacant for quite some time. We had someone that was in the Landmark building for about a year and then they moved out. So it was
Okay.
primarily business owners from the downtown area. And then there was also city staff assigned to those positions as well.
All right, so is there now a vacant position for a resident?
There has been for quite some time. Well, actually, maybe, Amy, is there a vacant position on that board?
You know what, I have to take a quick look. I believe there is, no, it was just filled during the last meeting with William Arthur.
Okay. So I guess I'll start
Arthur is-
recruiting somebody for the next round.
I don't
Because
think
it's
Arthur's,
important.
Arthur's not a resident, he's a
He-
landlord
he's
down
not.
there.
He's a business
Correct.
owner down, yeah, he's representing the businesses downtown.
Correct. And I would like to see a resident there, because, you want to get their perspective too. They'd be definitely overwhelmed by business owners and city staff, but there are a number of people that live in downtown and I think their position is valuable. So I guess I'll just start trying to recruit. I'll talk.
Well, if we're eliminating it, we won't need
Yeah,
them.
yeah, we're eliminating it.
Oh, is that what you guys said? The eliminating the parking action committee? Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, your legwork, Heidi.
I know,
Anybody else?
well, I wasn't planning to be at the meeting, but I decided to, so.
Anybody else got a comment on this? I think the or we're looking for a direction to staff where you want to go further with this. Anybody got a motion?
I have a
Gwen?
motion.
Gwen,
I have a motion to accept it as written.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Roger. Do we have any discussion? Anybody from the audience? I don't think so. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Okay, that passes.
Aye.
There's the direction for staff. The next thing on the agenda is the new city hall project update, including finance strategy. So Melanie, or Dave, do you want to say something first?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just, I know it's kind of been a long time, right? We've looked, it was 2015 when we sold the other property. And part of the reason we know that is because we were looking at the interest rates. And as much as we all kind of hate delays, I have to say it kind of worked to our favor in this case when Rhonda ran the math for the same building that we're looking to buy perhaps today versus back then, it's about $100,000 savings per year, which over a 20-year bond, if my math is right, that's $2 million saved on basically the same building. So I'm not proud of some of the delays. I know Melanie and myself, we pulled our hair out a lot trying to get the plan sets and the architecture work, to where you guys were comfortable with it. Fingers crossed, we feel like tonight is presumably the last kind of discussion so that Melanie can then go forward with the architect on construction drawings. Really the only kind of outstanding items that I think council's been wrestling with has been the issue of the third floor not over the council chambers and financing, which Rhonda's prepared to talk about tonight. And then kind of secondary, just because it's smaller price-wise, I'd like Melanie to mention the solar panels. I mean, those are kind of the three issues, I guess, that we would just like to kind of get your feedback on tonight, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can, you can green light Melanie to begin really in earnest to work on those construction drawings. And if all goes well, maybe by the end of the year, we'll have a plan, to be able to go to bid and then go to the bond market. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we're at. If it's okay, maybe start with Melanie, just kind of those couple of building pieces that are finally need some finalization, I guess.
Hey, Melanie, it's yours.
Perfect, thank you. So I had put together a report that I believe all of you got, kind of just reviewing where we had been, how we got here, kind of reviewing the fact that who all is in the new administration building was a decision that we did very early on, taking a look at all of the staff and who should be in that building and the size that we have. So part of that then became the discussion of building out this third story over top of council chambers. And so some of the things that I wanted to just add to that report is, as you know, the three departments that aren't coming are community development, the service engineering side, and the health department. And for various reasons, we all chose that we felt it was best that we kind of stay here at Overholt and the health department stay in their home, and now they have a new home. But having said that, one of the things that I think council has done superbly on this project from the very start has been able to be a good checks and balance for us. When we first came to you with that building, we had several conference rooms. Our offices were a little large, perhaps. And so you kept asking us to come back and take a look at that. And then you wanted to make sure that we had enough storage. So we made sure that we kind of accommodated that, and we shrunk the building down and we got rid of some of the conference rooms. And so I'm very proud to say that I thought that was a great check and balance on our part, just to make sure that we were getting a really sound project for everybody that was involved. So having said that, I then took a look today, because one of the concerns that I have is if we build this, what would go into that extra space? And did we do a good job in making sure we were going to accommodate staff for now, but also for the near future and hopefully for a longer time than that? And just looking at who would inhabit the spaces, such as on the top floor, you have the mayor and his office. You have a clerk office. She has extra space where she can do her passports and those kinds of things. So if at some point council needed to expand in having additional staff, we could either build that out. There's an extra conference room real close. There's some storage that they have. So I do think if they were in a need to have extra space, then we would have that space already worked in. Same way for the city manager. His administrative assistant is right next door. He has an additional office for an economic development. There are 2 conference rooms on that level. Again, so if there was a need for space or growth there, I think that we've done an excellent job, and you guys did a great job to get us to cut that down, but still realize we may need some expanse for growth. Law department is on that floor. Our law director has a nice office. We were able to kind of carve out a little bit bigger space so that there's an office for the assistant law director right now that maybe 2 people could be in. The administrative assistant has space. But again, there's conference rooms local to that they could expand into. Probably the one person on that floor would be HR that may need some additional space in the future. But the beauty, if you remember, on the first floor down by council, we actually established a little office pod, if you will, with the hopes of maybe having a outside, maybe it was Main Street Kent or the chamber that might be able to come into that space. And we've decided at this point that that wouldn't take place, but that space is down there. So if HR would have to expand, they could certainly expand down there. And again, we are over 200 employees. So probably that might be one in the future that might need some more space. And no, Suzanne did not pay me to say any of that, but it's just something looking at it. Going down to the second floor, I have to say under Dave Coffey, but now under Rhonda, they've done an excellent job to take a look at taking care of their personnel. In fact, we have what would be 3 additional spots. Rhonda's actually taking a look at her staff that we might be able to condense down a little bit more, but she would have the room for 3 additional cubicle type areas for employees. We have an office specifically for a utility manager, which is a position that's not filled yet, but we hope perhaps in the future will be filled. So again, 2 conference rooms in that area, plenty of room for growth. Civil services then on the main floor as well. They have a large office area with plenty of room. We made sure they would be able to accommodate the commission if they had to come in for meetings or conferences or those kinds of things. And now with the school not maybe needing some of the help with civil service, I don't see an initial need anyways for that to expand. And then of course, as council's on the first floor, you have an office. If you needed extra space, we could certainly fit you into some of that office area or even that large room that's right off the main area. And of course, you have your executive session room. So I think council's done an excellent job in making sure that we're looking at what our needs are today, but also our future growth on that. So building wise, I'm not sure. I think as we're looking at what this additional cost would be, I think we should also take into consideration the true needs. What is it that we would put in there? Because I think that'll be a question that we're asked if we do build that, especially if we build it and we don't put something into it in a relatively short period. And a short period for us, as we know, can be as, 5 to 10 years is sometimes a short period, just because it takes so long for us to get things going. So on that aspect, that would be kind of my review of the building where we're at now. I don't know if there's any questions or concerns on that. And Dave, did I cover everything kind of that you were hoping that I would? And I'll do the solar panels next.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna say solar panels.
I have a question.
Wait a minute, Heidi, go ahead. Or Tracy, I'm sorry.
So with the old building, we were there 20 years and we were starting to chafe a little bit with the personnel, correct? We had plenty of storage in the old building, but we were starting to chafe a little bit with personnel. But this new building is almost 50% bigger than the area that we used in the old building. And what I hear you saying is that we have plenty of room to expand from where we are. You just named a lot of different conference rooms and different things like that. So we have ability to expand, and everybody you say is going to stay over in service department because they thought that was a better fit. And even if they don't, the only people that would move over into the administration building would be at most community development, which is 4 people. I mean, they might get a 5th person maybe, but service department and engineering is going to stay where they are or stay out of the administration building because of the needs of their own department with the trucks and the boots and the engineering and things like that. So that's what I heard. Is that correct?
That is correct. And community development would probably more than likely now and well into the future stay with us here too. And Bridget can certainly answer to this because we do a lot of overlapping. We do stuff when community development needs stuff, whether it's boarding up a building, cutting of grass, those kinds of things. And as well, we need stuff out of their records and stuff. So I believe that connection between the two was so strong. That's why it was decided that we would all stay here in this building.
Okay, so we have plenty of room as is to expand then. That's what you were saying?
I believe that we do. And I credit that to us to make sure that we're taking care of not only today's needs, but the future needs.
Okay, that's all.
All right, anybody else have any questions on this topic right now? All right, Melanie, you want to move into the solar screens?
Yes, please. So on the solar panels, we're looking at around $50,000 to be able to install those. So the hard part that I'm kind of dealing with on that is that the building itself is going to require 768,960 kilowatt hours for an entire year. And these solar panels will only provide us about 36,450 kilowatt hours, so less than 5% of our needs. So I guess I'm looking at some direction. While yes, we could set up some electric stations and, help with electric vehicles, we could certainly do that, but that's about all that it would have the capability of handling at this point. So I'm not sure how council feels on the expense. I would like to say and put a little plug here, because while Harrison was here, he was doing a really good job and getting me involved with going to some of the groups that Heidi had started and those kinds of things. And we actually had them take a look at our water treatment plants. And I think there's a lot of potential there. If we were going to do it, that might be the best, where we would get a bigger bang for our dollar. But I guess I'm looking at council for some direction of that 50,000 for less than 5% of what we would need to run this building.
There, Mr. Kuhar.
Do we have much demand in the new facility for domestic water, hot water?
Well, we would have the standard use, yes. I mean, you're going to have it in your bathrooms, in our lunchrooms, but compared to like residential housing, probably not as much.
Well, what I was wondering is, years ago, we got it passed that we were supposed to have solar in some of our other facilities and for the domestic water purposes. And that never got done, even though it was passed by council. But I'm just wondering if a small domestic water system in the building would be maybe something to look at. I mean, how many gallons of hot water do you figure we're going to use a day? And you're talking about a lot less costly and pretty effective.
Yeah, 22 times 20, you're probably maybe 700 or 800 gallons, just because on average it's about 20 gallons per person is what you would figure.
A
So I
day?
think it'd be right. Yeah.
You think how much?
Yeah, it's high, but that's what the EPA asks us to you when we're trying to figure things out.
So a small 10-panel system would be a good, maybe a good move in that direction, 8 or 10 panels.
The only concern is I would want to talk to the electrical engineer because I know that that is a different system and how you have to hook that up. So
That's it's a hydronic system. It's not electrical, it's
okay.
thermal transfer.
Are you finished,
I
John?
I have something.
Tracy?
Go on, let
That's
Heidi go
fine.
first.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think I've been reading a lot about Puerto Rico and what happened with the hurricane. We're not in a hurricane situation, but the very few buildings in Puerto Rico, of all places that should have solar, that had solar, became the community centers. They became like a place where people could go that really needed electricity, even as simple as to charge cell phones. They're very important in an emergency situation, number one. Number two, maybe, how can somebody tell me what the size of the fleet is that the people that would be working in that building, how many people have city vehicles?
We can get back to you on that. We don't have it.
Well, I'm just saying that would be kind of a nice step because that future is electric. And if we have a few of the city vehicles that are buzzing around town, it would be really great to have them be electric and be charged. I like the charging station idea. So the other thing is, the generator idea. Do we have a generator that we're going to be backup power?
We're taking a look at that right now. That is, in order to bring the whole building up is extremely expensive. So we're taking a look at what we want to bring up and what we feel is essential to bring up.
Right. That's kind of thing that maybe we could do with the solar panels is look at what would we really need if the power went down? What would we really need the solar panels for? And, what could be one way of maybe the council chambers could be lit up by solar panels or the hot water, like John was saying. I think it's good to at least start as in a leadership type of role, even if it isn't going to fit all the needs, because maybe the technology is not quite there yet, or the amount of sunshine that we have. But there may be some reasons to do it outside of being the primary source of electricity.
Sure.
That's
All right, Heidi, you were before Tracy. Or Tracy, you were before Heidi. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
All right. Mr. Kuhar, you had your
Long
hand
day.
up?
Yeah, well, first of all, technology is there in both aspects of solar. A lot of people don't understand that thermal and electric solar are two different animals. I know in the last building we spent, I don't know how much we spent extra to have a LEED certification. And it did no more than give us a better look in the public eye. And I think when you look at this, if you look at electric for solar, it's going to be minuscule for the needs of the building, but it would have effect on the public looking at that we're in this century. And that's why I asked about the domestic water situation with the solar, because it's a totally different type of solar, and the cost effectiveness of it might be a little bit better. But it's still there again, whatever we spend on it, the public's going to say that we're in this century. You drive out Summit Road and you see that stadium out there. Of course, they were given all that stuff and they're getting a tremendous return, but they got a lot of roof. And, so solar panels on our little city hall would just be probably a mere token if you're trying to produce electricity. And I agree with you. It's not as cost effective as you could be. But it might be worth looking at the domestic water system for a building. It might have a better bottom line. And I can suggestions of panels if you're, looking in that area.
Roger?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, Melanie. Was that the recommendation, the number of panels, was that the recommendation from the architect? Was that the limited amount of panels that we could put on, the square footage we have available?
It was the limited amount that we had for the square footage and the build out and the design of the building.
Because it seems 5%, it seems like it is minuscule when you think about it. And I am kind of surprised that it's only $50,000. That's a pleasant surprise. I thought it would be a lot more than that, but 5% for, I don't know. That's a struggle in my mind. I like solar, but it's a struggle.
Glenn?
Yeah, my question is, so the obvious question is how soon before it pays for itself? How soon before that investment pays for itself? Do we have numbers on that? Will it ever pay for itself at 5% before the next generation of solar is available?
I don't have the direct answer on that, but based on just getting 5% back on our return, I think it would take an extremely longer time than what we would have those panels for.
So there's a chance that there would be another generation of technology with batteries or whatever coming out that could actually be more cost effective, that we could get a better return. I'd be inclined to wait for that.
Okay.
John?
One thing people seem to lose track of when they talk about technology and future and past when it's coming to solar, there's one constant that will never change, at least hopefully it won't. And that's the amount of energy that the sun puts out per square foot. And we're capturing pretty much a good percentage of that right now. So that's not going to change. It's always going to be there.
All right, Tracy, did you remember what you were going to say? Go ahead.
No, but Heidi wants to say something.
Light up, Heidi. I don't see your light.
If I could interject, I just did look it up. There would be no city staff that would have cars. There's no city staff right now that would have a city vehicle. So that would be located in this building.
All right, Heidi. I guess we lost her.
All right, I remembered what I was going to say.
Okay, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay.
Now, when John is saying domestic water,
No,
okay.
I'm here.
All right, Heidi's there. Go on.
Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Brimfield Township has solar panels on, what is that, is that their fire station or is that their town hall? Can we talk to them about what they're getting from that? And, what are they using it for? Because I think, that's pretty impressive that they've been able to do that and they're getting something from it. And I do happen to know that I have friends that are selling their electricity back to the grid, especially during the daytime. I mean, especially during, because daytime is the time where where electricity is most needed in the summer due to air conditioning. So the pay for itself question needs to be addressed, because of that ability to sell back. But can we talk to Brimfield and see what their experience is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, Roger.
I think the real issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melanie, is that 768,000 kilowatt hours per year. If you take an average home and you look at the kilowatt hours that you use per month, while I agree with Heidi on a smaller setting like a home, you certainly can with prudent use of solar panels, you can certainly get to a point where you are selling back. I think that the problem is 768,000 kilowatt per year and being able to only generate 5% of that. I think I'd like to hear more about what else could be done to make us more economically and environmentally safe before we really make a final decision on those panels. I think 768,000 kilowatt hours, that is like an ocean compared to a home. And I think we need to keep that scale in mind before we make some decisions on that. And I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it all solar, but
Tracy,
Yeah, we don't need to make a final decision on the solar panels tonight, right? We only need to make a final decision on whether we're going to build out the third story. Is that correct?
I'm,
Yes, that's correct. The third story will be built if we decide not to do it, for that to be built in the future. And right now it's being designed to hold the solar panels. So that particular answer can kind of wait. Yes.
I see. Okay.
okay, Robin, I see your light coming on and off. Is there something you want to say?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right. Is there anybody else from council have something to say on this? Okay, I guess we're gonna look for a motion, but we're gonna go to the public. And I do see Howard Boyle out there. If you want to unmute yourself, we could probably hear what you want to say before we go to our motion.
Mayor, did you want to hear the financial side of it yet?
Well, I'm trying to think. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Melanie.
Yep.
So I'm going to share a screen with you and show you. I sent this out earlier today to council. Basically what we did is we took three scenarios of 7.5 million, 8 million, and 8.5 million. And then we compared the rates for this current issue with possibly what it would have cost us if we had done this 5 years ago. So you'll see that the net debt service for a $7.5 million building would be a total of $8,708,000. We're looking at interest rates of 1.43. If you look at 5 years ago, we would have had 3.54%. So we're basically looking, if you compare the 7.5 million today to what the rates were 5 years ago, we are looking at costs that we did not have to incur, like Dave had said, of $1.912 million. So the rates are historically low. We are in a good spot to issue the debt. Keep in mind that we did pay off the West Side Fire Station, the notes for that. So those monies going forward will be put towards this debt service as well. There will not be any new tax dollars. We're just going to continue our current interest rates, or the current tax rate that we have at 2.25%, and we'll use those dollars to pay out this debt service. And if you look, depending upon which model we end up going with, which will depend on the quotes that we receive, we can't technically go out for a bond issue until we have a bid set in stone. We actually have to sign a contract with a construction company. So once we determine whether there's going to be a third floor or no third floor, we can then go to bids, get the bids, and determine how much we will actually need. But you look at a 7.5 or an $8 million bond issue, you're looking at $455,000 annually, or $485,000 annually. And then it goes up to $516,000. I did not include any down payment, basically. So the proceeds from the old City Hall are included in the general fund, and we are using those proceeds to pay the architecture fees, but I did not include them in any of the down payment here, because according to our financial advisors, they are suggesting that we keep a carryover balance in our general fund of 20 to 25% range, if at all possible, because that will make us look better for Moody's, and hopefully we can continue with the AA. I want to say it was a AA2 rating that you received the last time. Again, there's no new tax. And then the demolition of the old police station, where there are new City Hall will be erected. The demolition costs will be coming out of the old, or the police facilities fund. Did anybody have any questions on this? I tried to, the original schedule that I sent out to everybody, I tried to show you how they came up with some of the numbers. The premium, that's just based on what the financial advisors are telling us that we could potentially receive. And so that would be in addition to the bond proceeds that we're going to get. And so that money, less the issuance cost, will go into our debt service fund. And those proceeds will then be able to be utilized for our first year or second year debt service payment.
Is there any questions to the finance director?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go Roger. I don't have my screen here, so I can't see.
Oh,
who's got
okay.
their hand up.
Rhonda, thank you very much. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, because we're using a term that, being a school person, I kind of had a knee-jerk reaction, and I want to make sure that people out in the community are understanding. When you say bond issue,
Yeah.
we're talking about working with our banks and working with lending agencies to get the money. We're not talking about putting a tax bond issue
Correct.
and out to the community. And I wanted to make sure I would clarify that, because I'm sure there are people who are watching this saying, wait a minute, you said you weren't going to come to the taxpayers, and now you're talking bond issues. So as long as we get that clarified and people understand, as long as that was the understanding, I'm good with that.
So a bond issue, if you want to put it in layman's terms, is basically like your mortgage. We're going to go to the bank. We're going to obtain a mortgage with the bank. In this case, it's going to be through Moody's. So it's going to be considered through an official statement. It'll take about 2 months for a process for this. And then what we'll do is then we will have 20 years of mortgage payments is basically what it boils down to.
Mayor, I've got a question.
All right, are you done, Roger? All right, Mr. Ferrer.
Joan, thank you for putting together the numbers. So let's go back to the proceeds from the sale of the old city hall. That was like $1.2 million. Ballpark, how much of that is left after we paid our architectural fees?
Okay, so the original proceeds was about 2.3 million.
Okay.
300,000 of that was used, from my understanding already, to get, for the move out of the old city hall into the various locations. So about 300,000 has been already used. So we have about $2 million left. Architecture fees are a little over 500,000, close to 600,000. So we're going to use the $2 million to pay out the architecture fee. So that will not be included in our bond issue,
Okay.
our debt payments.
Okay. So according to Baker Tilly, if they're recommending not to keep the 25% in the general fund,
They want us to keep a carryover of at least 20 to 25% in the general fund. So that way, I guess it'll,
percent of what?
they just want us to keep a carryover balance in the general fund in the range of 20 to 25%. So I think they want us to keep,
With that 25% of what number?
I want to say our proceeds. At least I think they didn't really specify exactly what they meant by that, but they want us to make sure that our general fund carryover looks as best as possible, that we can make it without using those funds to pay down in advance the debt service. So that way we look better to Moody's when they go out for a bond issue.
I got it. And so the question I would have then is, what dollar amount represents 25%? Because if we're talking about saving money and at a lower rate, that the money's not earning anything in our general fund, and are we not better off putting as much as we can from that proceeds down on, so we don't carry a larger balance, but still meet the 25%?
That I'd have to look at the total numbers. It depends, I guess, on where we're at between now and the end of the year.
Right.
With under the COVID-19 pandemic, and how we're going to be based at the end of the year, what effect will that have on this as well?
Right. I get that, but I think it's worth noting whether or not, or discussing whether that money is put down on the bond, or put down on the principal, I guess, and
Correct.
reduce the amount of the bond that we're going to issue.
We are also going to wait until this goes out for a quote, so that way we know exactly what dollars we're talking about. And by that time, we will then know where we are going to be at the end of the year and what we're budgeting for next year. So we should have a better idea by the time this goes out for bid, how much we can actually use of that $2 million. Or roughly 1.5 million at this point.
Right. That's it for now. Thank you.
Is there any further questions? I guess we're looking at the three different items now. The financing, the solar screens and the build out. Is council done with discussion with that before I go to the audience? Or Tracy?
Yeah, I thought we were just gonna put off the solar panels until a future time because we were gonna get more information on
Well,
it.
then make that motion.
I move that we put off deciding on the solar panels till a future time until we get more information on them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Okay, that passes. Now, do we want to go to the public? With the
Yeah.
other items. Howard, I see you're there. Do you have comment on the, build
Mr.
out?
Mayor, and council, if you'd let me speak about the building itself, it's something that I've been watching ever since you were gracious enough to allow us to walk around town and look at different segments of the city to put in it. And I think frankly, I think the architectural firm has done a beautiful job of building that I think we can all be very proud of. My concern is the fact that it appears that we may not be putting that third floor on over the council chambers. And I think that would be at this point a mistake. And I say that for three reasons. One is the fact that when we started talking about this building, as your finance director has indicated, the interest rates were more like 3.5%. Now they're 1.2. And the amount of payment will allow you to put money in it. And as she's indicating, you're not going out for a tax increase anyway. The other factor is that you will never be able to build this build out cheaper than you can today. And I've watched over the years as large projects have been done, and we always make buildings so that you can put an additional floor on. The problem is if we ever get to the point 20 years down the road or 5 years down the road or 10 years or whenever it is, it ends up being 4 or 5 or 6 times more in cost. And if we had just put it on, you don't even have to use it. Just put it on and have it available to you for a build out at a later time. And the third reason, which probably is the least reason, but coming from an architectural review background, the building really doesn't balance without that third floor over the council chamber. When you stand on the corner and look at the building, it doesn't quite look appropriate. And I think we all have to be extremely proud of this building and the way we know and frankly, what most people are going to see in this building or their experience with this building is by driving by it and looking at it and saying, isn't that beautiful? Or I'm so proud of my city for doing that. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say that.
Is there anybody else in the public that I can't see on my screen? Once again, is there anybody from the public that'd like to make comment? I can't see on my screen.
There's only one other person signed in, Hami Schweitzer.
Amy, you're breaking up.
Oh. There's no one else.
All right, that's what I want to know. Okay, we're gonna go back to council. I guess we need a motion whether we're gonna go with this third floor or not. Tracy?
That's right. I would like to make a motion to keep the building as it is.
Is there a second to that?
Second motion.
Second by Mr. Kuhar. Is there further discussion, Tracy?
Yeah, I think we don't need the third floor. I think that Melanie made a good point. What are we going to put in there? We already have plenty of room to expand. We built that into the new building. We have plenty of room to expand. And coming from an art background, I want to say that I think the building looks nice the way it is. And if we put a third floor, then I'd like the gray part, but I think it looks just fine the way it is. And I think that it's just not necessary. And I think that that's my first point, that I really think it's unnecessary because we have plenty of room to expand as it is. And my second point is we have no idea, depending on who gets elected, we might be in a depression for the next 4 years. We don't know that. And so an extra $30,000 a year in a payment might be a lot of money depending on what's going on. So I think it's not necessary for the main reason.
Okay, Mr. Kuhar, you second that motion? You have comment?
Yeah, well, my comments are, if you look at the trend of service type businesses, and that's what city is, it's a service type business, their actually needs are getting smaller rather than larger. With technology, the storage capacities aren't needed that used to be needed. The workforces now are moving out into the field rather than central locations. You're not stacking up bodies in there anymore like you would with a hotel or a school or something like that. And when you look at plus you build a building, we've even found out in the police station, you had to change stuff right after you build it. So the technology 5 years from now, even on the inner part of the building, is going to change. So in the meantime, we're going to maintain it. We're going to have to heat it, cool it, whether we use it or don't use it. And I think things are always going to go up. They always have. And the dollar is always going to be worth less, and it always has been. But I think, they made a good case that when they showed us that building the first time, and I don't even know where the third floor came from, they built a building that was adequate for now, adequate for in the future, and it had a good street appeal look to it. Without the third floor, it still looks great. It kind of accents the council chambers. So, these are some of the reasons, and everybody that has called me has been opposed to it because they're thinking about the extra 600,000 or 500,000. And yes, there's no interest rates of 1.2% interest rate on it, but you still have the principal payment that you're paying. And this is not our money, it's taxpayers' money. And, and you've seen some of the emails come in on that. Not one of them said, hey, this is great. Most of them are saying they don't think it's a good thing to do. And, maybe 5 years from now, we'll all be rolling in the dough. Maybe 5 years from now, we'll all be broke. We don't know. But I think if we have a good building and it's going to serve our needs for the next 20 years, we don't have to worry about this for 20 years.
Is there further comment?
I have a comment.
Yes, I have something.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Which
Who's
one?
that? Okay, Heidi, go ahead. I can't see
All
you.
right. Yeah, I know. Well, I just want to say that, I think we've been a really courageous council over the years that I've been on. And, we've made some strong moves during some difficult times. During the Great Recession, we started the downtown project. And I think that we were wise to do that. We knew that that was the only way we were going to really dig the city out of an structural economic problem that we're finding ourselves in. And, we worked really hard at that. And so I'm usually on that side of let's be bold, let's be courageous, let's do the thing that maybe people don't really understand. But, in the end, we're betting that it's going to be the best move. And for the life of me, I cannot find a need for that additional building or that additional space. And I don't think that it detracts from the building not to have that. I think that maybe we really show the public here that we're being courageous in the sense of being prudent this time. I think we've made a lot of great decisions. And 10, 20 years from now, if we really need something, I'll have egg on my face. But I feel like this is the right thing to do at this time. So I'm going to vote against having that additional story just because there just isn't a need.
That's it. Scare
Mr.
that.
Pereira.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think it's foolish not to build out the space. And to Mr. Kuhar's point of, if I could paraphrase, just downsizing and work from home, that is a moment in time right now that we're seeing. And we've talked about telecommuting for decades. We've talked about the paperless office for decades, and it hasn't happened. And the reality is, if there's any one sector of the economy that continues to grow, it's government. And as Ms. Wallach mentioned, depending on the election, that could be even a bigger growth depending on the election. So, the only government that's not working right now is the county commissioners. Everybody else is back to work. And if you look at, let me give a couple examples. Let's go back to the fire department, right? Our city hasn't grown. I've heard Melanie talk about what the projected growth rates are and what the use of capital is. But if the city hasn't grown at all, then why is the fire department out of space right now, right? That's 18, 19 years since they built that thing, and they're out of space. It's a function of expanded job requirements, expanded services provided to the community, and it's, that's a government entity. So I think, again, when we look at that, you have to put it in the context of this, to be, as Howard has mentioned, as David Dix mentioned in the paper, that you have to account for the growth and plan accordingly and financially prudently for it. My other point is while we have extra space in the new building, and we'd be foolish not to build extra space, right? We don't want to outgrow that place sooner, but going back and retrofitting a building and turning lunchroom space into an office space is not a good plan for growth or a good plan for modification. I look at Suzanne now, she's in the basement of the fire department, right? I mean, that's modified space to make for an office. We've got, if we're going to have a building, let's have the capabilities to grow. And I'm not, and I'm hoping we would grow reasonably in that regard. So there's that aspect of it. Next, I think you have to look at KSU, the architecture department. They did not build another floor there because they built to a budget. And now, and before last year, before COVID, they had architecture students off in other buildings on campus. So here you have a gorgeous building, state of the art, and you don't have enough room for it because they built to a budget. And then, I think that highlights a situation where we could be in. Metro Hospital in Cleveland is raising their main campus, which they've been waiting to do for 20 years. And now they're able to do that because they can get the financing on that. Just to put it locally, UBS, I work for UBS. They had a lending incentive firm-wide across the United States from July through August. UBS clients borrowed $4.5 billion because rates were so low. And to put it locally, the Cleveland market borrowed $450 million. I mean, that's smart money using and taking advantage of smart interest rates and low interest rates. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in this situation, is to be able to say that. I'll make one more point, and I appreciate your bearing with me, is if you put this in reverse and you called this the mortgage on your house, right? And you had the opportunity to refinance your house because your mortgage was at 3.5% and you could drop it to 1.4%, you wouldn't waste any second running down to the bank and talk to Howard to refinance your house because the rates are that much cheaper. And that's exactly where we're at in this place. We anticipated 5 years ago that we would have to spend $500,000 a year. We're going to get all of that plus extra space for growth at a lower rate. And we're going to save $60,000 from what we thought we were going to pay in the past. So I think when you put it into that context, you have to say, look, are we really going to set up the next generation of leaders and put them in a good financial position? And that's my argument here is we have to lead. Heidi mentioned what we've done downtown. Everybody on council, everybody in administration, anybody associated with the city is so proud of the decisions, and they're riding high and they wear it on their sleeve as a badge of honor of what we've done downtown Kent, because we made hard decisions and good financial decisions. And here's an opportunity to make a really big financial decision. And you're just going to piggyback on everything that we've been doing. And I think it takes a little bit of intestinal fortitude to say, we're going to do this because it makes sense financially. And my last point too, you can get 100 phone calls of people that don't like it and say, I've got 100 phone calls. It's still 2/10 of the population of the city of Kent. Get 10 phone calls, 100 emails, whatever it may be, it's not indicative of what the general population wants. And it's not leadership to base your decision on that kind of data. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Tracy.
Yeah, I want to say, first of all, Chief Tosco said that they were running out of room for storage because of equipment, not for personnel. And that makes sense because they have new equipment, types of equipment coming in every year that we purchased for them. So they're going to have more and more equipment every year. And as far as the old building, how many employees did we really add over the 20 years from the old building? How many employees did we add to our government? This is just a city government. It's not the federal government. So how many
You have
employees?
the answer to that though?
Wait, Garrett. She was still waiting.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'd like to rebuttal it when it's my time.
We'll pass the collection basket to you next. Go ahead, Tracy.
So how many extra employees did we really add on to the city payroll in the old building? I don't know, 3 or 4. We're not expanding as a city. I don't think we're going to expand as an administrative government either that much. And the other ones that given examples, those were schools where the population is increasing, the population of the country is increasing, the population of people going to college is increasing. So that's a lot different than an administration in the city government. And I think that buying the 3rd floor right now, and we have no idea what's going to go in it, is kind of like going out and buying something on sale, even though you don't need it, but it's on sale, so you want it. And I had one more point, but I don't remember what it is. Go on, Garrett.
All right, Garrett.
Okay, thanks.
I wanted to say something with the mortgage. If I didn't have a job, I would refinance my mortgage, but I wouldn't refinance and get more money for my house. I wouldn't go into my equity. I would just refinance and get the lower rate. I wouldn't add money to my mortgage if I didn't know if I was going to have a job or not.
That it, Tracy?
That's it.
All right, Garrett.
Good points. I respect your opinions and your views. But if you use the argument that those are schools and schools are increasing and the number of students are increasing, well, the university is in a great position to capitalize on that, which means that the city is going to have to accommodate more students. So I could make the argument, and that could build the case for where the growth is going to come from. And to paraphrase David Dix, you're voting for pro-growth when you say that, and all the pieces seem to be in place for pro-growth post-COVID. Okay, you had another point there, and I see what you're saying about you're not borrowing more money on your house, and that's not what we're suggesting. I'm just trying to relate the fact that you had an anticipated expense, and the expense that you're getting is less, and but you're having a more efficient space. So I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, I think you can really make a good case for being able to borrow at these rates.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah.
Let's get Robin. He hasn't said anything.
Okay, am I talking now? Okay.
No, let's go to Robin. It's hard to tell with these people on the phone. The yellow light goes on. I don't know whether they want to say something. They're just breathing hard. Go ahead, Robin.
Thank you. You okay, Jim?
Yeah.
Robin, go ahead.
Okay. We had asked Melanie to go out and evaluate the value on whether or not the build out would be a necessity. Something that we should be anticipating the possibility of. In her evaluation, she just come back and indicated there's no absolute certainties, but she's talked to department heads, looked at the prospect of the actual geographical and populous growth in the city, those things that you would need to assess whether or not there's going to be sufficient growth to add on new staff. her indication, at least from my standpoint, of what I got from it, was doubtful. It does not look as though that is the case. I have immense respect for Garrett's position. I think it's not unreasonable. I think that looking at where we are as far as money access right now to us and the value there is a positive one. The only situation is, are you doing that with no necessity or no real value established for it? And so in looking at that and asking the staff to come back, and I have confidence in the evaluation of a person who really, while they are staff, is trying to make sure that they go down the middle of the road as much as they can. I have to support that position. I think at the end of the day that between $500,000 to $700,000 in a time of uncertainty with COVID and we don't know where our budget is going to be, and this year, next year, the year after, there are a lot of question marks right now. I don't know that this is the appropriate time to try and do build outs. I certainly respect and would, quite frankly, I was supportive of this 2 weeks ago. I agreed 110% with Garrett's position at that time that a build out was showing leadership and confidence in her. But if in fact our staff, who I have utter confidence in, is coming back and saying, I just don't see it, and I'm not hearing that from other staff people in their anticipation. We have a facility down on the other side of Kent that's able to accommodate other staff and administrative functions. We bought that. It's adaptable for us, and it's functional for us, and it's meeting our needs, and will be for a number of years. And at this particular juncture, I'm going to vote against it because we just, and with all due respect to where some of the other individuals who are supportive of the third floor are coming from, because I believe that that is a reasonable position you can hold. I just don't believe at this juncture, this time, that it is going to benefit the people. The people, in my mind, also do not support it. And I think it also shows leadership to understand that sometimes you have to tighten your belt and understand where you are and where you're going to be. And I'm hopeful that tonight we do that. And we can respect other people's differing positions, but I don't think that this is really in the interest of the community to the degree that it should be. So I won't support it. Thank you.
You done, Robin? Mr. Cool,
Yes.
how you have your hand up, then I get you next, Jack.
Yeah, I'll finish. One thing, Robin, if you're against it, is actually you're for the motion now. But
Okay.
I wanted to, I wasn't talking about people working at home because of COVID. I was talking about people working at home because that's what corporate structure is doing today. With the technology and computers, you don't have to be in the next room anymore. Most of the businesses are conducted, remotely. And the other point I want to bring out is, do we really have a picture of what we're doing here or what we're building? We're building a service center for the citizens of Kent, an operational center, a headquarters where things are dispatched and run from. We're not building a Taj Mahal. We're not, we want something that looks nice and respectful. But as Robin said, we will show leadership by being prudent with how we spend the taxpayers' money. And if we can build a building that looks good, functions properly, and moves into the future, that's what we're doing.
Are you done, John?
Yep.
Jack had his hand up. Roger, you'll be next. And you're muted, Roger. Go, Jack.
I hear our administration saying that, that they don't really see a need for the third floor. And Garrett, I agree with you 100%. Howard, I agree with you. This certainly is a time financially to do this, but is it the right time to do it during a pandemic, during times where people are suffering that don't understand? Listen, I'm very fortunate. I have not suffered the way a lot of people are suffering during this. So I would say I got 21 calls. I talked to one person, I talked to Howard, and I talked to another person who were in favor of the building. But most of them insinuated to me that the council is not looking at the problems that people are facing, that we're almost selfishly wanting to add this with really no known purpose for it. And so I think that we really need to look at that. And, Garrett, I represent these people, and you're right, 21 people is just a handful of the people in my ward. And I don't know how the other people feel, but they have every ability to call me. And I have to tell you that I'm extremely discouraged with the state and federal government because they don't listen to people. They don't listen to their constituents. And I think we need to do that. So that's right.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Roger, unmute yourself and go.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Well, I was one of the ones who have advocated this right from the beginning, and I will continue to advocate it. But I want to make sure that the people who have called and who have expressed concerns about this, I think the way we handled it was not appropriate in the sense that we probably should have had a better handle on it in the beginning. I really believe that the opportunity is here to do something that is a little special, and at the same time, it makes good economic sense. But I also understand there are a lot of people who are afraid out there. I mean, the fear is running rampant. We heard it from Ms. Wallach. I mean, her concerns about the doomsday. I hear doomsday from both sides of the aisle, both sides of the argument, regardless of what's going to happen. Call me, and you can, and I have no problems with this. Call me that cockeyed optimist. I'm sorry, I'm not going with the doomsday. I think that we have to be strong in the face of, and I'm not talking about council, I'm talking about our community. We need to stand with those people who are struggling right now and who are fearful, but we need to be strong in the sense that we will overcome the obstacles that are going to be thrown in front of us with this COVID, with the issues that a lot of small businesses, which that's real critical right now, being able to have small businesses, have people who are willing to invest in small businesses. And the difficulty with that is trying to balance it against this. I'll tell you about this wonderful lady who called me. She owns a business here in Kent, and she was adamant about we shouldn't do this. And she had a lot of valid reasons that were coming from very strong emotion. And I'm going to say that I'm going to stand here and I'm going to sit here tonight and I'm going to support the third floor, but it's not from emotion. It just seems like a practical financial thing to do that in the long run, this city hall, and I get tired of people saying in 20 years, this is a 100-year building. If we don't think that way, that this is going to be here for 100 years, then I don't think we're doing our due diligence as council people or as administration or as community members. I think there should be, I don't believe that there should be an expectation that we're going to build this building and we're going to toss it away in 20 years, or it's not going to be viable in 20 years. I think we need to think about that. So it's not a win-lose by any manner. Whatever we do, we need to get our city hall built. I, for one, am not going to support the motion.
Is there anybody else? Mr. Ferrer, then Tracy, I mean. Mr. Ferrer, unmute yourself.
It was okay.
Thank you. Man, imagine that, you telling me about technologies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Makes my day.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Thank you. You know, when we went back to the original plans about the building, and it was, do we have a service kiosk, right? Do we have, you know, an automated system for people to come in? When we go back to hiring the clerk of council, it was, do we just have a voicemail system where you can punch in the access? The resounding answer from council was, our citizens want to talk to people. They want to be able to have interaction with people. And the more that government and the more that the city plays a role in these people's lives, the more interaction they're going to want. And that's, so council has already decided in the past that that's what they want. And I think therein is part of what when you look at what can happen and what can be in that facility, whether you move community development or not, it's the ability to be able for residents that come into an area and have human interaction and feel that the city is answering and taking care of their needs. And I think that's another way that you have to look at it. So I think that's an integral part of what council has already determined the city wants and how we can provide services to our people and show them that we care and have that in there. We are one city manager and one service director away from a completely different opinion about who and what should be in the city hall. And as Roger mentioned, you know, when you look out, you know, that could be 5 years, that could be 5 months, that could be 10 years. But when you look out 75 years or 50 years, you know what? Somebody's going to ask, why don't we have community development in there? Why don't we have a better service center in there? Well, whatever it may be. Maybe we could provide a better place for the county commissioners to meet, you know, maybe they'll feel safer there. So I think, again, I'm with Roger. Look, I want the building to go forward. I like it. I think we're going to give the citizens the best thing possible. I'm not going to hold it up because of this, for not having it. But I think I'm going to vote no on the motion.
We lost the mayor, so go ahead, Tracy.
I just want to be clear that for the motion is to keep the plans as they are and not put on the third floor, because I think some people are thinking that it's to put the third floor on, but it's a not to have the third floor. And I'd also like to say, I think as the university grows, the departments that are going to expand the most will be police and fire, and they're not going to be in the city hall. I can't see much expanding in the city hall for administration people. Maybe 2 or 3 people would be added, but I don't see much more happening. Another place where it'd be expanded would be in the service department with the bills, the water bills and everything like that, but not in the administration area. That wouldn't be happening. So that's all. I just don't think we need that. My main gist is I don't think we need the third floor. I think we have plenty of space to expand into.
I've heard from Mayor Fiala, he is having technical issues. So he asked that Mr. Amrine take over as chair of the, vice chair of the committee, or as president pro tem.
We have a motion on the floor. Do you have anything? Anybody else have any comments?
Could you read that motion?
Roger?
Yeah, Jack, could you have Amy read the motion on the floor to make sure we're.
Amy, would you read the motion, please?
Yes, the motion is to keep the building as is.
Yeah, no third floor.
Okay. Any other comments from council?
I have a point. I have a question on the with regard to the motion. I can't make an amendment, move an amendment to add the third floor because it's counter to the actual motion itself, correct?
Right.
Correct.
I would like to be able to make a motion to, look, I don't want to vote against approving the building, but I do want to have a vote on should we put the third floor on or not? How do we do that procedurally?
Where's Hope?
You just did with the motion.
I'm right here. I don't really think you can do that, Garrett. Because Tracy's motion is on the floor right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have to be.
Now, if she would like to amend her motion to say, should we have a third floor?
No.
Okay.
Well,
Let's vote on the
may I
motion.
hope, could
Gary,
we amend the motion to vote on? I don't know. I mean,
The motion is just about the design. It's not about supporting or not supporting the building.
but I'm sorry. So Hope, read the motion again, please. Or I'm sorry, Amy.
Amy, could you read the motion again?
Yep, Ms. Wallach's motion was simply put to keep the building as is.
Okay, Garrett,
Okay,
you
so then
can, Garrett, you can move to amend the motion to what you would like it to say, and then we'll vote on that, and then we'll go back to Tracy's motion.
Okay, or could you, if voting on keeping the building as is, could we make, could that, after, if that passes, then can I make the motion that we, that we build
No.
the construction, or is that counter to the first motion?
Not sure I understand your question, Garrett.
I didn't either.
Gary,
So if,
are you trying to say that whether or not the third floor goes on, you want to vote through the building to start construction on the building?
I want to vote, I want a definitive vote on whether, from council, on whether or not to put a third floor on, and then I want a definitive vote, I would like a definitive vote on whether we move forward based on what the decision or not is on the third floor. Would that be amenable to you, Tracy, to?
Well, the first motion is whether we're going to have a third floor or not. The first motion is saying that we are not going to have a third floor. And then if you want to make another motion to say we're going to vote for the building to let it go forward to build it, then you can do that.
I didn't interpret your motion at that, but if that's what everyone agrees that the motion is to vote.
You want me to
for-
clarify? So my motion is to what did I say?
Proceed
Build
with
the building as the original design without the third floor. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right, but it doesn't give us the opportunity to vote on both, I don't think, but.
Call the
Yeah,
vote.
Mike, if I might. Hello?
Yeah.
Jack, you have,
May
Yeah,
I?
I'm sorry, Robin?
Yeah, may I, Jack? Tracy's motion is definitive. By passing it, that passes that the building will stay as it is, and we're adopting that. I don't think we can go back and start trying to find ways to support the building. The building as it is supported. I don't see how you then vote on Garrett's motion with to support the building. It's supported by voting yes on Tracy's motion.
Don't we have a motion on the floor now?
We do.
Yeah. I want to call the question.
Okay, that cuts off all debate.
Second, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion. Let's vote on this, on the motion on the floor. All those in favor of Tracy's motion to build the city hall as originally planned?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Do we have two
Motion passed.
opposed
Yes.
and the rest say yes?
I think that's three opposed.
3 opposed, me.
Mike was third.
Okay, thank you. So the motion passed.
okay. All right. That will end the
Well,
community.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes,
just the final comments on that, if Lord willing, I'm alive when they build the building and we get our name on a placard, I want an asterisk next to my name and the asterisk underneath to say, I voted to make it bigger.
We'll do that, Gary.
Caroline,
You always do,
I
Gary.
guarantee if you're not around, I won't be around. So,
Mr. Amrine,
yes.
not to try to top Mr. Ferrara, but I just want to assure everyone that in 20 years, if we don't need that space, I will gladly concede I was in error. On the other side of the coin, if we need it in 5 years, I promise not to gloat. Okay.
Well, I'm still in shock that Tracy and I are both on the same page. That was kind of scary. But scary to think that we were going to be in a 100-year-old building. I thought we were just getting out of one.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
So
gonna
that's
start the community development now, if we're able.
yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Hope and Bridget, we're going to talk about the city's participation in the Hometown Foundation.
Yeah, if I could just jump in before they do, this is a really exciting opportunity because obviously, I think you all have paid attention to the work that Dan Morganti had done with Bridget and he is continuing to do with the land bank, the Portage County Land Bank, and the ability to sort of, acquire some of these depressed housing units, deteriorated housing units, properties, and kind of get them fixed up and renewed to some extent. And we were really fortunate that Hometown Bank and Howard in particular took a personal interest. I think you all remember him as being very active in the historic South End discussion. And I think that got him pretty excited. It's an idea that he had been having to create a foundation to kind of mirror the similar activities, the land banking group that the county runs. So he's it looks like he wants to actually do it now, using the momentum really from the historic South End. It won't be just the South End, it'll be throughout Kent. But so we're delighted, we're thrilled to be able to bring this to you. And actually, there's not a big ask from the city side. It's just your authorization to allow us to serve on the foundation board. But Bridget, you've been living and breathing this stuff, and I know you've been one of the biggest advocates. So.
Yep. I will definitely turn over to Howard here soon, but I have always wanted to put a community development corporation together for the city, but that does require a commitment of funding. But such a use allows us to do so much more that we can't under the constraints of the federal and state standards of the housing programs we run now. So Howard showed up with a true gift. I was amazed and shocked when he brought the concept to me, and then now it's come to fruition. So I will turn it over to him, but for that, I want to say thank you, Howard, for this will be a game changer for us in the city, especially in the areas where housing has been neglected for many years.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Mhm.
I just want to clarify. This will be refurbishing old houses, right? It'll be renovating old houses, not tearing them down.
Correct. I'll let Howard speak to that. Yes, and we would be trying to rehabilitate and renovate housing and basically to increase home ownership opportunities as well as improve, obviously, the housing stock in certain areas of the city.
Okay.
Howard, you're muted. Okay.
Oh, no, I was, yeah, I didn't know I could speak. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Chairman, John, are you the chairman of this one?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is something that we have been trying to put together for the last 3 years. And I know that it's a need for the city, but over the last 45 years, as I sat in my office in downtown Kent, I would hear people come in and complain about what was happening in their neighborhood. A house was it was depressed and the people moved out and no one was taking care of it and no one seemed to want it. And sometimes it would be picked up and used for substandardly. And those were always issues that concerned us because it was detrimental to the neighborhood values. So from a bank standpoint, that was always concerning. But and then over the years, city has gotten much more involved in primarily, I think, because of Bridget, in some of the neighborhoods, and Paul Bauer is actively going out and looking at properties, and he would call me and he'd say, Howard, why don't you buy this building? Well, I couldn't buy the building. I mean, the bank does not have the ability to buy buildings and renovate them. However, the bank can sponsor a foundation, and the foundation, which is not owned by the bank and has no affiliation besides the fact that we provide some expertise to the foundation, and we'll be providing funding when necessary. We can do that. We're allowed to do that. We're encouraged to do that by the Community Reinvestment Act. So it's an exciting thing. And I have to tell you that this is not something that is being done generally around the country. There aren't many banks that are doing this. There are some very large banks in some very large cities that are doing it and doing it very successfully. We're not talking about changing neighborhoods. We're talking about picking up a house that is substandard, that no one seems to want. And if we can go in there and make it a viable home again, and sell it for effectively what we have in it. We're not trying to make money. It's a nonprofit corporation. But every house that we turn around and make an asset to the community builds community value and pride. And that's what we're trying to do. And we love the historic South End because of what they've been doing, but there are other areas of the city that have depressed housing also. So in doing this, we have 9 trustees. There were 3 people from the bank, of which I'm one. Holly Schweitzer is another. She'll be doing a lot of the administrative type work for us. And then Mike Cohn, who heads our area at the bank, that when we are allowed to renovate homes if we take them, if they're given back to us, or if we end up with them after a foreclosure, and we can fix the house up and sell it. And then, and we've done that. We've done it very successfully. So Mike is very good at that. So we do have some expertise. We have 3 people in the community. Francis Penny, who lives in the, what I would refer to as the normal view allotment, which is the allotment on the, effectively from Crane Avenue or Lake Street to Main Street. And then Alan Orshan. Alan Orshan lives on, I think, on DePeyster Street, and that would be the Summit to School Street. So, and that doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to the West River area. We certainly are. We just only have 9 trustees. We'd like, obviously, the mayor to sit on it because he knows everyone in town. Bridget, because she has tremendous expertise, and Dave, because we appreciate his expertise in these matters. So that's where we're going with it. I know that as soon as the council formally approves it, we will have an organizational meeting and begin. If you want to know about funding, these homes will be funded through a line of credit at Hometown Bank, and all we'd be trying to do is purchase the house, renovate the house, sell the house. Hopefully, that would pay off the line of credit. If it doesn't pay off the line of credit, then we will make sure that it gets paid off. I guess that's one way.
I would like to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, who was that?
We're not looking for the city for any funding or anything like that.
That was Heidi.
Okay, who's that? Heidi?
Yes.
Speak.
Yes. Howard, I am beyond the moon. This is exactly where we need to be moving. You are out in the forefront of what, really needs to happen in our city next. Now that we have the downtown, we have something for people to move here for. Now we need to focus on our housing. We need to upgrade our housing, the existing housing that we have. And maybe, in some cases, some of the housing might be beyond the pale, beyond gone. And we may have to think about how we can do new housing. But my question is, So these would be like lines of credit to ordinary people who want to
No.
fix up these housing.
No.
You would buy them.
The line of credit would be to the foundation. In other words, the foundation would say that, as an example, they purchase a house for $40,000 and it's going to take another $40,000 to make it a viable home. So the foundation would draw down a line of credit, say for $80,000, renovate the house and sell it. And hopefully we can sell it for $80,000 and then pay back the line of credit. And then and I think this is also very important. Then a lot of times people that buy those houses are low to moderate income in themselves. And so it would be prudent and for, as an example, our bank and maybe other banks would do it too, have special funding available at low cost to do this type of funding.
I agree.
And we fully intend to do that. I would hope that some other banks might get involved also. But at this point, we're not talking about doing 10 or 15 things of these a year. We're going to start relatively small. If we can get 2 or 3 or 4 a year, that's a lot for us. But if we don't start now, we're never going to get this done.
Yes, I agree. And I guess my other question was, how do we keep people who just want to rent it out and run it back down from buying the houses?
Well, you don't. I mean, this isn't for every house. If the house is a viable rental property, it's probably, effectively, a lot of times those houses, unless they're a very, very good rental operator, the houses tend to deteriorate in value over the years, and they tend to deteriorate because the houses aren't maintained as if they were single-family residences. And I don't want to be critical to people who own rental properties. It's just the fact that is a fact. I mean, most houses are not necessarily in the same condition as if they were owned by the people that lived in the house. It's important, we think, to have people that own the house living in the house, and that tends to increase the pride in the community, the pride in the neighborhood, the pride in the property. So, but eventually, and we've seen this. I mean, there are some houses. A lot of times people will call and they'll say, "What can we do?" I mean, the house is for sale, but we don't want to buy it. I hear that all the time. We don't want to buy it. And I always used to say to them, get a group of your neighbors together and buy it and then sell it. Well, that's easier said than done. This effectively, in a way, sort of does that.
Right. So here's my question. No, John, I've still got the floor. John, so what policy do you need though? Because what I'm seeing in my neighborhood, the neighborhood that you just talked about, DePeyster, North Willow Street. Yeah, I get it. The normal Hill neighborhood. What I'm seeing is if something goes on the market, it's snatched up by somebody who's just going to buy it to stuff students in. Now we have some good policy right now where they can only rent to 2 unrelated, and we have some, we have inspections and all that in this. But how can we really push these houses towards homeowner occupied housing?
Well, you really need to talk to the administration more about that. I mean, all I can say is if the house is available and the foundation can buy it, they can turn it around and get it back into single family residency. However, we may not be the high bidder on some of these things. That's not necessarily where we're going. A lot of these houses that we're talking about are houses that frankly no one really wants. They're pretty depressed, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a situation where single family residence doesn't come into our our hands that would be could have been turned into a rental. I would assume a lot of them would be that way. However, we're still competing with the market like anyone else. So we'll have to take the ones we can get.
Okay, Bridget, you got something to say?
Yeah, I can expand on that. Because the Hometown Foundation will be able to acquire or take over these REOs and then put the money in it to refurbish them, the city does have funds that can be used, and also the land bank that we can use for down payment assistance. And we can add covenant language in it that will assist you with buying this and financing a portion of the down payment as long as it's owner occupied for a certain period of time. It's actually, we've done several of those here in the city, and we actually just did one with the land bank. Dan, who used to work for us, is the land bank executive director, and he and I have been dealing with 434 Stowe Street for quite some time. It was abandoned, and we were able to get a deed restriction put on that sale after the land bank took it over. So we anticipate working with the foundation, but also partnering with the land bank, who can erase tax liens for us, the city to provide down payment assistance. So this is huge, because this is the most costly portion of turning housing around. So with the foundation taking care of that, we can fill in the gaps.
Robert, a question?
Yeah. I think that's the things that we're trying to do here are essential in upgrading the community. But there is an unintended consequence, and that would be the prospect that most people look at as gentrification. Not that to the. I'm sorry. Did you say something?
Keep it to a question.
Yeah, well, my question is going to be, we have the issue in my mind, when you improve an area and make it more attractive, the implications to those low-income people who live in that neighborhood, whose property values then skyrocket. They then are put in jeopardy of losing their properties or their home. Now, I get it. I understand the aspect of making things better because, and that's something we really have to work to do. But also, how can we work to help or assist those who then are in a position when their property values go up? They're fixed income, they're now jeopardized. Is there a component or a prospect that we can apply to help them? Has that been put on the table?
Who's the question to? Is that to Bridget?
Well, yeah, it would be to the city, because Howard and those guys are dealing on a different level.
Bridget,
this is.
Answer
that? I've actually worked with numerous homeowners over the years to take properties through the Board of Revision at the auditor's office after new valuations have come through. Sometimes those valuations have resulted in a marked increase in property tax values. So I have helped them through that process and provided information that basically will bring it to a more reasonable level. Typically, though, in the residentials, we don't see as significant an increase as we do in the commercial properties, but I've helped with the commercial and the residential. So Robin, if someone were to run into that scenario, we could assist them and get them through that process at the auditor's office of how they can get that valuation reduced.
I would suggest that we look at that on the south end, because I've seen some that have jumped astronomical, and I'm very concerned about the prospect of the implications for people who are on fixed income that live in the historical South End community. I don't want them to get sticker shock, but I've seen properties now down here that are $100,000 and better, and I'm very concerned about the implications to some of the people who are living here and what that's going to mean to them. So that's something I just would like to be on our radar.
Okay, Roger, you've been waiting patiently for quite a while. Did you forget your question?
Yeah, I'm not quite that old, John, but close. One of the issues, and I guess this is to Bridget more than Howard, although Howard could speak to it. One of the issues that I'm hearing, and I've talked to a lot of community members, especially community members who were born and raised here, who have sold their home and they don't necessarily have the means to pay high rent, and they're looking for, having affordable rental, whether they be homes, mostly homes. So the question is that can we control if we sell this piece of property, since we'll have I assume we're going to have a vested interest as a community. Can we sell those homes with some kind of covenant language that would say if it becomes a rental, it's a affordable rental, whatever that means? I don't know if we have the ability to do that or not.
Well, that would be a foundation decision and how it was structured. I can tell you that I'm the city representative on the land bank board and have been since 2012. We have, with all the properties we do through the land bank, have that type of covenant language in. We are promoting owner occupied. So it depends on how the deal's structured. I would not commit to doing that with all the projects that we'd be running through the foundation, but depending on if it's partnered with land bank and the city and how it's structured, the deal, that would definitely be an option. I can tell you that typically it can be done in a smaller residential facility. It's a little harder when you move to something that's a multi-unit. Typically developers just of any kind, even nonprofits, they need to get a return on their investment in order to either build more or to keep the one running. So there's a lot of opportunity here. So the specificity of the deals would really be on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you.
That's your question, Roger? Okay, Tracy, I think you were next. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Dave has something to say.
Can I just add on to what Bridget said? We share the concern, both Heidi mentioned it and certainly Roger too in his comments there. The goal of the big picture here is to get more home ownership. People living owner occupied units. That's really still the ultimate goal. This is just creating a whole bunch of ways to help get us there. And there's sort of a third layer that we haven't mentioned, and frankly, it got pretty derailed with COVID. We had some really productive preliminary conversations with Kent State and Bridget and myself, our offices, talking about incentives that our respective organizations could offer on top of all this other stuff. So that, in other words, if a new faculty member is moving to Kent State and, there may be certain parameters, but they could be eligible for some sort of incentive to buy one of these homes, something like that. Likewise, if it may be something that the city would want to put some incentive in there too, to get it kind of where it's meaningful. All of that unfortunately got kind of sidelined with COVID and the whole financial uncertainty. But I did want you to know that it's very serious. Like, we had very serious conversations. I mean, the legal staff with Kent State, the president himself, and he's supportive of the concept. There's a lot of support for the concept. It's figuring out logistics. And this, again, I mean, people have said it multiple times, but the stuff that we're doing here with Howard and the stuff that Bridget's been doing is really opening up a whole new way to do those things that we've wanted to do for a long time, but just couldn't make the math work. This really makes it possible to make the math work. So we're excited.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I'm very excited about this too. I'm all into getting old properties and renovating them. And I wanted to know, this might not be legal, but it's kind of long. I can understand where Robin's coming from, because a lot of cities have priced out their communities. I mean, they have Latin communities or African-American communities that have to move out because they can no longer afford to live there. So can we come up with something kind of like rent control, but on the houses, the old houses that are owner occupied, so they're like tax controlled or something like that? I know you said that you work with them to get the tax down or something like that, but could we do or not? We just don't have any ability for anything.
I don't anticipate we could. And the one thing I think we should highlight is what Howard had mentioned. This will be a few houses each year, the land bank too. It is a long process to get property, sometimes through the REO process. If there's back taxes we have to deal with. We just took control of one on Cherry Street that now I'm working with the land bank. The city took control for basically for control of the demolition situation, but now I'm working with the land bank to get the tax liens and transfer that. So it takes a while. So these will be infill. We won't be able to do such large scale areas where there may be an adjustment in some valuations, but not to a level where it'd be an entire neighborhood. So I think that that would be challenging to do and to even determine what that should be. I do think that the types of housing we're buying and the programs that we're using to support and fill in the gaps on those will automatically result in us having the types of housing that shouldn't create a huge change in the valuations. We built 2 back in 2010 during the housing crisis with the neighborhood grants program, the money that we received. Both of those homes sold to basically middle and above middle income because we were allowed to do that. And neither house resulted in a marked increase in the property values around it, but it also did increase the valuations and the people around them did start investing a little bit in their homes as well. So it's trying to find that balance between investing and stabilizing a neighborhood and pricing people out of the market. I think for the scope and scale we're doing, we're going to be able to basically improve housing without putting people out of their homes.
Yeah. Any other questions on this?
Gwen,
Gwen?
Gwen,
Gwen? Gwen?
she might be frozen.
Are you frozen, Gwen?
There she is. She's unfrozen.
No, we can't hear you. Did you have a question? She's frozen. I don't know what to do. She's frozen. We'll come back to you.
I have something to say. It may
Go
be
ahead,
a
Heidi.
question. Okay. I just want to say to Robin, you know, I do get that it might be harder for people to buy housing in Kent. We're trying to find ways to make it affordable for new homeowners and stuff because a lot of our housing is going to really go for first-time homeowners, in my opinion, young families, that kind of thing. But, you know, I've seen my house go up in value with what we've done with downtown, with maybe just the general economy. They could go back down, I don't know. But, you know, and then with that, like I think Bridget mentioned, then we see people around, there's an effect. If we get a house and we fix it up, the people around the neighborhood, there's an impact. It's like more and more people fix up their houses. And so I think we get more bang with our buck when we start to be able to do some intervention on some houses. I would like to keep Kent affordable. So that's something that I would hope that the foundation would do.
I have a question.
Well, that was a very nice question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Gwen, you going to try it again?
Yes, I have a question.
What'd you do? Buy Bridget's old?
Can
I
you
don't know how to help you. It isn't working.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Try again.
She's in slow motion over there, smiling and everything coming out.
I know it's a long meeting, but it sounds like somebody's already started drinking.
Okay, any more questions that we can hear?
Hey, Gwen, why don't you text one of us your question?
I can't tell if she heard you or not. She just.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Any other questions? No. We're gonna go to the audience.
Gwen is texting somebody.
Somebody's texting.
Let's see here.
Okay. Okay. Gwen wants to know to be sure that this foundation won't be competing with people that are looking to buy houses. That's the first question. The second one is, and when those houses become, and when those houses become available, are they sold on the open market?
Well, the first thing is that most of these properties that we're going to be looking at are, especially in the beginning, are properties that frankly no one wants. Or they're being misused and they're effectively very reasonably priced. Of course, we'll be competing with somebody else who would want to buy a house cheaply and put a little bit of money in it and try to rent it. But that's not, that we have different purposes. So, but there could be some competition. But this is a free market system. So whoever has the ability
I
to.
would love to try it again. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're
No?
sounding like a computer.
We can hear a sound, but it's.
And the other thing, as far as selling the house, they would be sold on the market.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Garrett, I hope that answered Gwen's questions.
I think it did.
Okay.
I hope she could hear it.
I think she did.
She said she could hear.
Any more? Okay, do we have anybody from the audience? Okay, we're gonna come back to council with this. Do we have a motion?
Move to authorize with emergency.
Okay,
Second.
a second. Roger, did you second it?
I did.
You did, okay. Any discussion, Garrett?
I think it's a awesome idea. Hometown Bank has always been a support of the community. I'm happy to see that that's happening. And I'm also excited to see Dave or hear Dave talk about doing something in conjunction with Kent State, because I've talked about this for years, where I think the university should be involved in helping its people provide houses and turn houses over in areas like this. So it's great. I'm all in favor.
Okay, Roger.
This is the question I want to ask.
Strange sound going on out here. Roger, do you have discussion?
No, Jack seconded. Then I have a comment.
I guess I would just like to say, Howard, every community would benefit from having an individual like you in their community. I mean, really, and I'm not just saying that. I work with you on the Historical Society board, and you're really somebody who's, I know that when I first got elected 12 years ago, this was one of the things we were
And the
looking at.
second one is when the house become available.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like to say something.
Okay, I think we're getting hacked here or something. Go ahead.
I would like to say something. Is that
Go
okay?
ahead, Heidi.
Okay, yes. Like I said, I feel over the moon about this. This is where we need to be going. And, I know that Bridget's been working on it. I know that this is something I ran on. We need to see our city become uplifted and, starting with the houses that, as Howard said, nobody wants or in such bad condition or whatever. And then, we'll find other ways to attract people along the way. That this is just getting the ball rolling. And, it's so critical. You walk through our neighborhoods and there's a beautiful house and then there's a derelict house. And it's just, we're ripe for this. I can't be happier. So I'm fully in favor.
Okay, Roger.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah.
Hold on, Roger's next. Go ahead, Roger.
Oh, okay. I just want to say that I think that the last 5 years or so, we've really tried our hardest to try different things for community development, neighborhood development in particular. I can recall when we were offering grants for neighborhoods for doing things. I think that this is an example of a public-private partnership that focuses in on the most needy of the people in our community. We're looking at homes that are just being left abandoned in many ways. And if we're able to buy those properties and renovate them, and it's like Howard said, I don't know that we're talking about properties that are going to be, in excess of $100,000 on a general basis. And I think that this is a good thing. I think it focuses on what we said we were going to try to do for our neighborhood. So I really appreciate it.
Okay. Robin?
Yeah, while I have questions, they certainly don't rise to the level that I think would dissuade me from supporting this. I think that this is a tool which is extremely important to enhance the quality of life of residents in this community. I do have some concerns and fears about unintended consequences to lower income people and those people that some people I think on council believe are going to be impacted, and that's low income. I don't necessarily see the kind of outcome there that a lot of people maybe on council would anticipate. They still, I think, might be outside of the realm. That's something we can look at and start working to, though, understanding that. Hopefully, we will be able to identify and adjust some of the ill consequences that might be associated with what we're doing. But there's no question in my mind that on balance, this is a very positive situation for this community in toto. And so I wholeheartedly support it with some side reservations, which I think we can all work out. And so I'm pleased. I want to thank Howard and those other people in the neighborhoods that have worked, identified that as a need, and are working toward addressing, stabilizing the housing stock in this community. I'm very appreciative, and I look forward to what we're going to be able to accomplish as a community based on that.
Okay, good. Let's try a vote now. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Shake your head, Gwen.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed? It
Aye.
Okay, it passes. Oh, I heard her. All right. Now, before I close this off the streets and sidewalk, I just wanted to tell Tracy something that several years ago, the governor of Florida, Governor Bush, made a, I don't know what you call it. He froze the property taxes for residents, owners of houses that lived in their homes, and they could never raise the taxes more than 3% every period of time automatically, and that was a real help. So maybe we as a council can talk to whoever's in charge of that in our state. With that, community development's closed, and we go to streets and sidewalks.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. I'd like to call Streets and Sidewalks and Utilities Committee to order here. We only have one item, and that's the proposed modification to the South Water Street Smoker Unit License. And I think Bridget is speaking to that, to the council.
Yeah, this is an item for those of you that were not on council at the time, back in 2010, when Water Street Tavern had Cajun Dave's as a tenant. They had the smoker parked out front and used it for a period of time to prepare meals for the weekend. Mike Beater actually owns that smoker, and so in an effort to help boost the business, because as you know, because of COVID, his operations have been reduced significantly. He is looking for a tenant to use the smoker and offer carry out food. This would only be to authorize the same use in the same location with a different licensee. It's still subject to a review and approval by the health department and has to meet all the codes for the health department, as well as the fire department would look at this. This is really just changing the licensee to reflect the accurate owner and allow them to occupy the space on the right of way.
Mike?
What about all the problems they had with the smoke going into the upstairs windows and the complaints we got when it was operating? Is that going to be addressed?
Actually, I did do an email out to see if I could get a list of any of those, and I wasn't provided any. I know that there was several complaints prior to it of concern, and the tenant directly above had their window open, and that was an issue. But I don't think it was more than the resident that was directly above the facility.
What about the parking meters? We're going to charge them parking meters?
Well, this would be, we actually, through our chapter 358, which governs the meters, we actually have what's called a contractor permit. So we issue them to anyone that's doing work downtown to park all day. So he would be required to get that. We also would need to have him inform community development of it, so we could make sure that those meters were posted as temporary no parking for those time periods. It's the same process we're using right now for the downtown eating areas and what the farmers market is using for the use of Franklin on Saturdays. So we do have that in the code already to address that.
Okay, good, thanks.
Tracy?
If we vote in favor of the transfer of ownership, does that mean we're voting in favor of the smoker being there? Because I know there were a lot of problems with the businesses around it, like Sue Nelson's and the hair salon across the street. And there were a lot of problems, and they were not happy with the smoker being there.
This would basically just change the licensee and allow this actually would still be in effect, this ordinance. They would have to go through health department and everything, but it would just change the licensee to be the current holder.
Would
Go ahead,
vote,
Tracy.
I have a
would we vote,
question.
hold on, would we vote on letting them stay there? Or, I mean, would it come back to council and we would vote on okaying it or not okaying it or not?
Hope can clarify, but I believe since this ordinance is effect, all you're doing is changing the licensee from Cajun Dave's, which no longer exists, to the agreement reflecting Mike Beater, the owner of the smoker. So as long as they met the health code requirements and the fire code requirements and were approved for food preparation, they could go forward.
This is Heidi.
Yes, Heidi.
Yeah, I guess I'm still confused about that. Going forward, what does going forward mean? Does it mean going forward in those same parking places on Water Street?
Yes, in one of those 3 designated spaces, as was approved back in 2010.
Mhm. So is it possible to look for another location? Maybe even in the alley? Could we close off the alley and have them do that? That would be right by their business, but it may not impact. I haven't looked at the window structure there, but I did get a lot of complaints, and I'm concerned about that. I would like to see Mike Beater do well. I have no, qualms about that or anything, but I'd really, really like to find the best location that wouldn't impact negatively the other businesses and definitely not the residents.
Gwen, good luck.
Can you hear me now?
Kind of.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Kind of? Okay. I would like to just keep
Oh, no, we lost you again.
specifically to what's being asked of us about transferring it.
Hey, Gwen, yeah, call Garrett.
Yes.
Maybe go off video.
And
Do we say Gwen when we answer or Garrett?
Right. all right, hang on, don't hang up. So, Gwen made a good point. It's almost a point of order that to stay at the task at hand about transferring the title of it, because Mike Peter's not here to defend himself, and that's not the issue of placement, it's just the license for it. I think she's right. So if somebody needs to make that, then a point of order, then I will for her. But let's stick to the task at hand.
Anyone else on council? Seeing none, anyone in the community that happens to be online here with us? I don't think there is. If
No.
not, yes, hello?
No, there's not.
Okay, thank you, Amy. All right, back to council. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Jack, a second by anyone?
I'll second it.
Second by Garrett. Any comments, Jack?
No, if it's just changing the license, we have to do, and then we'll deal with the problems that come about with it, right? So.
Garrett, do you have any other comments?
Gwen said that she wanted to change her vote on the third floor of the.
Nice try, Garrett. Gwen, I know better, Gwen.
Point of order, point of order.
That wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Thank you for indulging me, everybody.
Yes. Okay, anyone else have any other comments?
Well, this
We have a
is
motion on the
Heidi.
floor. Yes,
This is
Heidi.
Heidi, and I do want to make sure, because my question was answered in the affirmative before, that we're approving the license transfer, but not necessarily the placement. Is that correct?
I understand it that way. Is that how?
No.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm good.
John?
Yeah, so if we vote no on the license transfer, that thing pretty much will just stop.
Yes.
Okay, any other? Yes, Tracy.
Yeah, I wanna be specific. If we vote on the license transfer, then it will go into effect in the spot in front of the, on Water Street, because that was the original ordinance, correct? So it will still be placed there and he can use it there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh,
John?
I didn't ask
you
for a
know,
question.
What would happen if we vote no on the transfer and then he found someone that wanted to take over that machine and they could come to council with a new plan?
They could do that.
Okay. Other questions? Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in, well, Amy, why don't you read that motion back to make sure we got it right?
The motion was to approve the transfer of the license of the modified smoker from Cajun Dave's to Water Street Tavern.
Okay, there's the motion. All those in favor? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Let's see, I got Heidi, Tracy, John. I think those are the no's, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
It passes. And now on to the Finance Committee.
Okey doke. Bridge safety grant request for Sunrise Drive. That's Mr. Bowling, I believe.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Last year, we submitted to the Municipal Bridge Program, placement of the Sunrise Drive Bridge. We were unsuccessful in getting that grant. And after going to Columbus and speaking to them and listening to the other bridges that were up for the grant, it wasn't surprising that we didn't get it because we had one of the better bridges that were eligible. So that's a good thing in one case. But we debriefed with them. We had some conversations and they suggested that when we submit back, we submit to rehabilitate the bridge. And after taking a look at it, we think that's the best way to do it for this area, especially since the problems are mostly in the deck and the beams. So we'd be replacing the superstructure, which is what the deck and the beams are, to serve this bridge, to replace it, to rehabilitate this bridge that serves about 18 homes just north of Sunrise. So we're just requesting approval to submit to the ODOT Municipal Bridge Program.
Questions? Oh, seeing none. Anybody in the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve with the emergency.
Second.
Discussion?
No comment. I know they got it built out.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, that's all for that then. Now, back to the chief and donation of police equipment to Mogador Police.
Nick is muted.
Oh,
I'm back.
There he is. Evening, chief.
Good evening. How are you?
Good.
So we have some surplus equipment that used to be in our cruisers. They're gun locks. They're electronic gun locks that we use to lock in a shotgun and rifle in our cruisers. We've purchased new ones, so we no longer need the ones that are the older ones. And Mogador Police Department has asked if they can, if we can provide those to them. In the past, we have provided old surplus equipment to departments when they've requested it. So I'm just requesting that we provide, we have 7 total. They're asking for 2. So I'm just requesting that the ability to provide those to Mogador Police Department.
Questions? Seeing none, anybody in the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve with the emergency.
Okay, discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. See, now that's how you run a committee.
Thank you.
5 minutes, not even 5 minutes.
We'll give it something
And the finance committee.
Give me something that nobody wants to write a whole document on.
Well, that's why I picked this committee.
All right, thank you, guys. We're adjourned. We'll see you in 2 weeks. For the
Thank you, everyone.
Tracy, thank you.
Have a good night.